Hi,
Hey,
Alessia. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. So nice talking to you. Alessia, I just listened to Dead Man and I love how jazzy it sounds. I love to hear real instruments on the track, like the final section with the horns. It's very different from the pop music that is dominating the charts right now, which is full of synths. Are you going the opposite direction in this new era? What can we expect to hear in this new album?
Yeah, so I think I listen to like all different types of genres of music. And a lot of those genres are like from, like 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, like all the way to 90s, right? But it's all like music that feels like a little bit nostalgic. And so when I was making this album, I still wanted it to feel, of course, like contemporary and like representative of the times today, but I did want to, add little elements that made it feel more like the music that I love, like some classic style music. And one of those genres is jazz. I love jazz. I love swing. I love, just kind of that whole era of music, along with hip hop, which is, I think another kind of big element sonically on the song. But yeah, I don't know. I think it was just like I just wanted to feel like all the music that I love, that was kind of like the main focus.
Right. And you've always explored different genres of music in your career. Your last album had a lot of bossa nova influence, for example. You're a big fan of Brazilian music. Can we expect to hear more of these Brazilian inspired sounds in this new album? And what have you been listening to from Brazil lately?
Well, in terms of like sonically on the album, there are a few little elements. It's not, I mean, it's not as prominent as it was on the last album, just because I did that so much on the last album. But there are like a little bit of elements of, kind of like a bossa feel, or like, kind of South American feel. But I think that'll always be present just because I love Brazilian music so much. And yeah, as far as what I'm listening to, I'm always listening to the usual suspects. Joao Gilberto, he's like one of my favorite artists in the world. And Astrid, who passed away, unfortunately, like I believe this year or last year, which was so sad. So I really loved her as well. Those are always the classics. I have like all of their vinyls, and I play both of them so much. Um, yeah, so those are like the main people, but I have a whole playlist of like all Brazilian music, names that I don't remember, or song titles that I can't pronounce, but there's a bunch of them.
And I read that you have a collaboration with John Mayer on your new album. How did this feature happen? And I love the version that both of you did of Stay, by the way, when you performed
Oh,
at the pub.
yeah,
Can you
yeah.
tell me more about this feature?
Yeah, so it's more, I mean, not to give too much away. I feel like this news kind of came out earlier than I than I'd hoped it would. But it's not a vocal feature. He lent some guitar to one of the songs that you guys will hear soon. And it was one of the coolest things ever. I mean, he's a huge songwriting legend to me, in my books. So getting to just have him put a little sprinkle of his talent on one of the songs is really, really awesome and exciting, and felt like a great full circle moment for me as an artist. So yeah, I can't say too much, but yeah, I will say there's not technically a feature. He just lent some instrumentation to one of the songs.
Well, I'm excited to hear it. And you won a Grammy for Best New Artist in 2018. And in the pop community, there's a lot of discussion about this award. There's something that people call the Best New Artist curse. Some people believe,
Yes.
the winners are at risk of, becoming less successful after winning this
Yeah.
award. As a Best New Artist winner, what are your thoughts on this theory and this discussion?
The thing that I've learned is that success is never like this, or like this, or like this. It's always like this, right? And what success even means to people has changed so much, right? And I never expected to like be number one for the rest of my life. Nobody is. Like everybody has had their big moments of success, have had their ups and downs, have had their like periods where they go away for a bit and they come back, and they go away and they come back. And to me, I felt like I've always kind of been around doing my thing, and whether that's changed because the industry's changed, is I don't think that's a curse. I think if anything, it's like the curse of like being an artist and being overwhelmed and having to like take steps back because or at least in my case, because it was just a lot. And I don't think I would have wanted to like be in front of people forever like that. To that degree, it was becoming like honestly very unhealthy. And so a lot of the reason why, I kind of haven't been so visible is because I've taken a lot of steps back. I've been very like kind of hidden away for a lot of, the last 5-ish years. Um, yeah, so it's like partly by choice and partly because nobody like there's different new people coming in and people's tastes change and people evolve and grow and find their footing. And it's so like unfair to put these expectations on people where it's like if you're not number one on a chart for the rest of your life, you've fallen off. And like I'm very successful in so many different ways and I'm just happy to still be doing it. So I don't think it exists. But yeah, I mean people can say what they want to say. It is what it is.
No, I totally agree with you. And my next question was about exactly what you're talking about, because you hit it big with Here almost 10 years ago when you're only 19. And I say only because I am your age. And I want to ask you, how did the fame and, this sudden spotlight and pressure affect you as a young woman?
It honestly really did affect me quite a bit, more than I probably realized at the time. Like looking back, I realized it actually affected me a lot more than I thought. And kind of just touching on what I said earlier, like it's a very it's so hard to explain because not a lot of people go through it, but it is such an unnatural, like unhuman thing to be perceived by millions and millions of people who you don't know, but somehow know you or think they know you and have these opinions of you. Like, it's just not in our human biology to be seen by that many people and to be living this type of life, and going through that at such a young age when you're in such a developmental state is very damaging. And I'm just very lucky that I had a lot of great people around me to help me through it. I have a great family, great friends, great team who just really supported me as a person. And that was really helpful. But yeah, I totally understand why a lot of artists kind of need to step away or go through a lot of difficult times because it is something that's very challenging when you're that young, I think. Or I mean at all. It's challenging in general, but definitely when you're like 19, people are seeing all of your phases of growing up and instead of doing it in private, you're doing it in front of like millions of people. So it's a little challenging, but I also am very grateful for that time in my life. Of course, it's given me my career and my life. And yeah, so I've come to peace with that, I guess.
It's such an unique experience because, 99% of the people in the world will never relate to this, but it's cool to hear you talk about it so candidly.
Oh.
And in that vein, your music has always been deeply personal, in my opinion. I describe it basically as the girls who get it, get it. And
Yeah.
and even though the art that you put out is so introspective, your personal life is not really public. How do you balance, what you want to show and what you don't want to show?
Well, I think I'm, knock on wood, lucky enough that I am able to keep a lot of elements of my personal life private. I think not everybody has the luxury to do that when, they're being photographed all the time or, just their life is kind of like an exhibit, which is like my nightmare. So I'm very, very grateful that my career has gone this way in the sense that the things that people care about when it comes to me are my music and the things that I put out as an artist. And it's never really been a huge topic of conversation. And maybe that's just because I don't really post a lot of my private life. And so people don't really know much about it. So they don't really tend to care or ask. So I think it's partly, very designed that way. I tried very hard to protect the people in my life and just my private life. But at the same time, I do think I have the luxury of being able to do that. I don't know. I've just never had that type of like celebrity. Like I've never had that type of fame where people cared so much about, my personal life.
And what are you writing about lately? Because I feel like your last album was, as I said, very introspective, looking into yourself and your feelings. What can you expect for your next release?
You can expect a lot more of that, a lot more introspective conversations with myself and with certain people in my life. And I mean, I think all my albums are have been and will be extremely personal because that's just the way that I write and that's the way that I process my emotions. But I think this album definitely feels a lot more uh, sturdy and unwavering in the way that it sits. And there's like a even in the moments of sadness and pain that you hear, there's still kind of like a quiet confidence where I'm a little bit more sure of the things I'm saying. And I can like stand with my pain in a way that feels a lot more uh like understanding, if that makes sense. And then there's a lot of happier moments too on this project that I've never really touched upon. I think all my music for the most part has been very kind of somber. It was very interesting for me to explore a different type of writing and a different feeling.
It's cool to hear you talk about it because when you follow an artist that it's kind of your own age, you kind of relate to the things they're singing. So I'm excited to hear you what you're gonna sing about next.
Thank
Um,
you.
and you interact a lot with your fans online. I mean, on Twitter, you're always replying to them. How did you manage to keep, a healthy fan community around you when we're in this stan culture era where, it's kind of crazy out there?
Yes, it definitely is. Yeah, it feels like the wild out there. Like the stan culture has really really evolved so much. Even in the last 8 or 9 to 10 years since I've been in this industry, it's become like such a prominent part of artist careers, which is great and not so great in a lot of ways. But I am just really grateful that the group of people who have listened to my music and the community that we've managed to build feels very open and welcoming. And yeah, I don't know. I just feel very proud of them as people. And I'm just glad that they create just like a safe, kind environment for me and hopefully other artists too. Like, I feel like they are pretty nice to other artists too. And I would never want somebody with, my picture in their Twitter to be saying terrible things about somebody else. I always, I am an artist. I know what it feels like to read those things and I don't know, it's not good. So I'm glad that they're very kind and I hope that they continue to be.
And I feel like social causes are very important to you too. You're not scared to be vocal about the things that you care about. So I want to ask you, what's the importance of being vocal about these matters as an artist, as someone who's visible, to the world, as you said, millions of people watching you.
Yeah, I think, to some degree, like as much as I know that I am an artist and that is my specialty, that's what I do, and I don't always have a place to speak on certain things, I do also feel, on the other hand, on the larger hand, that people who have a public platform have some level of responsibility if they choose to talk about things that are important in the world to help other people out, and a lot of it just comes from like a humanity basis. Like if I see something that is like a threat to innocent people or like like a detriment to humanity, that always feels extremely important to me. And I always, whether I'm like educated about the details or not, I always just try. Like when it's like a life or death, people's lives at risk, I always feel like that's important to talk about because we have a responsibility as a community in the world to help each other, I think, and to that's what community is. That's what interdependence is. So I always try my best to shed light on things that matter to me, and even like mental health, just to try to help make the world a little bit better for people. But um, yeah, I also understand the difficulty that comes with that too, because sometimes it gets tricky and you don't want to say the wrong thing or hurt anyone's feelings. But I don't know. I think if it's a question of humanity, there's never a subjective opinion. It's just a matter of right and wrong. So I always try to do the right thing.
Right, thank you. Can I just have one last question? It's
Yeah.
really quick. And you're approaching the 10-year mark in your career. I want to know, how do you see yourself in the music landscape now? How do you evaluate your career, and what are your expectations for the future?
It's crazy that it's been 10 or almost 10 years that I've been doing this. Like part of it feels like 100 years, the other part of it feels like 2 seconds. But I don't know. I just feel very lucky that I've been able to continue to put out music for this long and that there are people that still care and support me this way. And I don't know, I think I just moving forward want to continue making music that I really, really love more and more and more, and inch closer into just being an artist with a sound that, you know, is mine, that I love, that I can go to sleep at night being like, I'm proud of that. And I'm very grateful that I've managed to do that a lot in my career. I've always been stubbornly obsessed with doing things that I love, but especially on this album, I feel like I really, really achieved that. There's not one thing that I don't like on this project, which is nice to be able to say. So I'm like, okay, this is good.
Nice, that's exciting to hear. Thank you so much, Alessia, for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Whoa.